Thank you.
All right, it's 10:30. We're going to take one more question. I know each of the candidates has indicated that they're going to be around afterwards to take additional questions. I want to be able to allow those that have to get out of here to get. Sir, if you'd like to ask your question.
I'm a little disappointed. Main thing here is the economy. I haven't heard any candidate walk up here with an outlined budget. I'm gonna vote for you. I wanna know what you're gonna fund, what level you're gonna fund it, why are you gonna fund it at that level? I wanna know what you're gonna cut, how much you're gonna cut it, why are you gonna cut it, what you're gonna eliminate, and why are you gonna eliminate it?
All right.
Well, I'll start that one off. The economy, that is a very, very strong point. We have to get to, first you have to get to zero-based budget. So no family starts off with last year's budget and then chops away from there. It doesn't work. You gotta start from the ground up. You gotta bring audits into it. So with Joshua's law, they're supposed to bring a certain percentage of ticket amount to that specific law. Well, they clumped it into general funding. That's not supposed to happen. Tires, disposal tires, supposed to be $1 per tire. That was jumped into general funding as well. So the first steps is we do need to cut a lot of wasteful spending, but we need to know where that spending is going in each individual segment. So part of that, you got to get the audits in, and it needs to be an outside. You can't have the hen house and the fox watching it. So you got to get an outside source auditing those funds and knowing where can we cut the budgets, where can we make sure that our taxes are being used in the right proportion. So that's your answer there for the taxes part. Now the economy part, like I alluded to earlier, that economic development, part of that is do we have a landscape in this district, in Georgia, that's viable for big companies that are high skill paying, high want to come? Is it a tax structure? Is it a transportation structure? Are we ready for that to happen? And that's what we have to really focus on and have a 30-year plan rather than the road's done, let's go to another road. Do we have an idea for rail system? Do we have an idea for just in Cartersville with Lake Point coming? You know, if they're half wrong, that's 40,000 people a weekend. Do we have the infrastructure in Cartersville to handle that? Or are we going to be a one-stop shop that they're going to come in, hit all the traffic and go, okay, I can't handle it here, so now we're going to go to Chastain Road, we're going to go to Barrett Parkway, and now you lose. So that's what really needs to happen.
Matt, they're going to Emerson, not Carterville.
Like Doug's will fill up real fast.
Well, you know, it's hard to say what you're going to cut because I'm afraid we've done too much cutting without looking at ramifications. For example, we recently closed some prisons in the state that saved the state $12 million. That sounds good to start with. But what we were not told is that those prisoners are now being sent to local jails, and your property tax millage rate is paying the difference between the $20 the state pays for housing that prisoner per day and the $35 to $41, depending on what system you're in, that it costs to house that prisoner. So, you know, that looked like a good cut on the surface, but then the local homeowners ended up footing the bill for that. We need to look where we have regulations that hamper business. For example, we put a lot of money in training and development, and that's good. A lot of businesses really appreciate that. Some businesses don't need training and development. They have their own staff and they work with everything. But we might not be able to attract that business because they don't need that money in that category, but could use it somewhere else, and we can't use it anywhere else. So we need flexibility in what we have at the local level, as Bruce mentioned earlier. You know, the local people know more about what to do with our money than anyone else. You know, having to answer to local people for a budget is something that I've had to do for a long time. And You know, when you have to call a good teacher in and talk to them and tell them that they're not gonna be back because you don't have the funds to pay them, but you also know that you can't go to the taxpayers when they're paying all they can afford to pay and tell them that you need more money. So, you know, it's hard to say exactly what you'll do until you study the ramifications. And I think too many times we're making tax cuts or making tax increases without looking at the ramifications of our actions.
Thank you. Bruce?
Dwight just said that he, for many years, had to deal with things that everybody else had to present to him. And I would say that's, again, why there's a difference. The reality of it is we need jobs, okay? Jobs create revenue. So I would be remiss if I said to you, I'm so arrogant enough, or any one of these candidates are arrogant enough, that we're going to say, well, we're going to go down and people that are serving the capital, this is what they're doing wrong, we're going to fix it. Because those that live in glass houses should not throw rocks. There's a principle there, right? So I don't really know what that looks like down there other than what you and I hear. But I can tell you this, we don't have transparency. That's a fact. You can see that whether you like the media or not. Personally, I think the media is biased, but you get enough of them together, they're saying the same message. We have a lack of transparency down there. We have waste. We know that. As a business owner, as someone that has created jobs, has created companies, has generated wealth in the companies, you look at every line item to see if it's beneficial. If it's not, you look at the cause and effect of eliminating it. And the effect supersedes what you're trying to do, you may not choose to cut it. If it doesn't, you cut it. We have not done that on the government level. What we've done is we have, as Matt said, we have moved things that were around without being transparent. If it's a dedicated fund, or designated fund, excuse me, that's where it should stay, and that's what it should be used for. If it's not, it goes into the general fund. The problem we wind up with is, and I believe Dwight was alluding to this, is education, since that's his wheelhouse. Best I can understand, that's your only wheelhouse. Education took a hit. Why? It's about 50, depends on who you talk to. If it's K through 12, it's about 52, 53% of the general fund. Some say 48, some say 56. Well, of course it's going to take one of the biggest hits. Okay? That's just incremental. But do you also know that we have a surplus sitting down there? I just talked to Joel Thornton, you didn't mind me bringing it up. There's a surplus of money sitting there that we could do something with. Now, I'm not saying we throw money at education, but it sure was a surprise to me we got a surplus of money sitting there that we could put back $300 million. Where the heck is that money going? Why is it sitting there? Are we drawing 10% interest? I doubt that. I can only get 1% and I serve on a board of a bank. That's the kind of stuff we need to get, whoever's elected needs to get in there and have the ability to immediately impact and say, hey, let's look at this and let's go through this and see, is this really what it was intended to do? And if it is, okay. If it's not, why does it exist? That's going back to that layers of government we've talked about before. On jobs, you create jobs in a robust economy, and guess what it generates? Revenue. And guess where that revenue goes? To the general fund. So I don't know that I don't know anyone can really answer your question other than we need to get rid of waste, be transparent, and generate jobs.
Thank you. All right, with that, I'd like to thank all of our candidates for coming out this morning and